Hey guys, it's Whiskey River, and in today's video, I wanted to go over some things I wish I knew when I first started Path of Titans. I've been playing Path of Titans since it first started, and I'm still actually learning stuff. There's so much that the game doesn't tell you that's not intuitive, and that I'm even discovering things like as recently as like just a couple of months ago. And I've been playing the game since 2022 when it first came out. So this video is going to be very helpful and more catered towards beginners, but I think there's going to be some stuff that even advanced and experienced longtime players might get from this video as well. Because like I said, even I have learned some of these things just in the most recent months. And there's been a lot of changes throughout the life of this game since it came out. It is technically still in a beta, and so they're always updating stuff and changing things, and they don't necessarily always tell you what those changes entail. But I had a couple of friends that have never really been interested in the game, but they knew that I play the game and it's my favorite game, and watch some of my videos from time to time. And one of them was watching some of my videos recently, and he's like, "Dude, this is really cool. These videos are awesome. It really has inspired me to come try to play the game with you. And would you play with me?" So I told him, "Yeah, of course." And he had a lot of questions, and it kind of reminded me that there's a lot that I take for granted, and there's a lot that I forget is not, you don't easily understand when you first start the game. So he's like asking me, do you have a beginner's video that I could watch that would kind of like help me through all this stuff? And I realized, I haven't really made one for a couple of years. So I think it's time for another one, and that's why I'm doing this video, and I hope you guys enjoy it. So let's get right into it. So the first thing is this settings. You go into the controls here and adjust these settings. The first thing you want to do is adjust the sensitivity. I would say go as high as you can that's comfortable for you. You don't want to go too high, but if it's too low, you won't be able to react in time. So play around with that. I say go as high as you can while it's still comfortable for you to play, and you should be much better off. And then the rest of these buttons here, you can actually map all of these buttons. I'm using this far right column because I'm on a PlayStation 5 console, but you can see on the far left column it's for keyboard and mouse, and then I think the center one is for the other consoles. So go through here and map these buttons out. Play the game, fiddle around with it. You can dial this in to where you put the buttons where you want them. You can see here I've got some different voice calls on these buttons. I've got a record replay so I can catch rule breakers on the community servers, and also it's some pretty cool cinematic gameplay. I have auto run changed from just on the up arrow to I have to hold L1 and up so I don't accidentally auto run off a cliff or auto run in battle or something, because that can happen from time to time. So I just changed that one around, and you'll find different things that are more comfortable for you. You might not like the default buttons that they have set up, so you can customize that to your liking. Now, you can join multiplayer, which is going to take you to the official servers, but that is, I did that for the full over a year after the game first came out. I grew every dinosaur on there to adult, and I joined, some Discord groups. And the problem with it is that there are Discord groups that will gang up and kill you, and it can be very unfair. And unless you have a big Discord group to defend you, it's not going to be very fun on the official servers if you're playing by yourself, especially. And even if you have a small group of friends, there's huge Discord groups that will, overwhelm you and can make your life miserable on officials. But if you like that kind of thrill, then that might be for you. But I found myself gravitating towards these community servers, and there's everything in here from strict realism to just straight up deathmatch. And they have different stats that they can adjust on the dinosaurs, so a lot of them will balance the dinosaurs out. I personally like the semi-realism servers. Crimson's okay. Don't necessarily like how they have their dinosaurs balanced there, and it is a pretty big community. There's a lot of it's a step up from officials, but it's still a little bit too much for me. I don't necessarily like the balancing that they have on their dinosaurs on that server. And there is still a lot of people that just kind of play like officials and break a lot of rules. So I have found one called Apex Killers that I really like, and they've got simple rules. They've got some fantasy creatures on there that like dragons and dominus and stuff like that that are really fun. If you want to play a fire-breathing dragon, that's a great server. Dynasty is a real strict realism server, and they're very oppressive with their rules and stuff, and it can be a pain. You spend a lot of time just trying to figure out the rules, and you'll get tickets and all kinds of, get in trouble just for hunting people half the time on that server. So I didn't really like that one very much. There are some deathmatch servers you can check out, but I personally usually play on Apex Killers community server. When you first join these servers, there's a big, huge banner right here that you see that is telling you that there are rules. Welcome to Apex Killers. We are a server with rules. And then he's got a summary of some of the basic rules here. And then he tells you the rest of them can be found in Discord. And even if you're not in Discord, there's even a Google Docs that they've done so that people can easily get these rules and go over them. And so that's tip number one, is know the rules, follow the rules, and check your profile. That's the first and foremost you should do, is read through the rules, and then before you play on this dinosaur that you're going to select, check the profile. Read through it, understand it, and know it. The other thing is these damage and defense and these little values here, you can't go by these. Just ignore these. These really aren't significant. You need to play the dinosaur and feel it out to really understand it, because these things are, you notice that like the survivability one, that really has more to do with like how fast the creature is and how much it can jump, and how, if it's semi-aquatic, and like what is its ability to get away from a fight. That's what that is. If it's slow and big and has to fight, you're going to see that survivability bar very low. But I mean, if you pick a T-Rex, for example, even though it's really low, obviously the T-Rex does a lot of damage and it's very tough. So, in my opinion, the C-Rex or the regular Tyrannosaurus Rex is very survivable. Even though it can't jump and run and all that kind of stuff, it can kill very easily once you learn how to play it. So don't really put too much credence into these little value bars here. I would say you need to actually play the dinosaur itself to figure it out. And it's going to vary from community server to community server. The stats are different on all these community servers. They're not the same. Some community servers just leave the stats like standard how they are. But in my opinion, those servers aren't fun because the dinosaurs are not balanced with one another, and it creates a situation where there's some dinosaurs that are much more overpowered than others, and it's pretty obvious, and it's not fun when you play a dinosaur that can just easily kill you with a couple of 3-4 clicks of a button. It's much more fun to play on a server where they actually test these dinosaurs, they fight together, they check them, and then they balance them, and they say, well, this one might need a little more speed, or this one might need to be able to swim better, or this one should have a little more damage so that it can compete with these things that hunt it all the time. And that's what they do on Apex Killers, and one of the reasons I really prefer that community server over the rest. And that does take time and adjusting and testing and adjusting, and so it's not always perfect. And even on Apex Killers, you get situations where there's certain periods of time where you might have a handful of little dinosaurs that are somewhat overpowered, but eventually they do recognize it, because a lot of that has to come from community feedback and testing, and then they'll change it. They're not just going to change it overnight. So while I do have some complaints on a couple of the dinosaurs and the way that they are right now, overall it's very balanced relatively speaking, compared to the other servers that you're going to find out there. At least on Apex Killers, they try and they regularly test and adjust stuff. And that's really, really important to me in a community server. And even though it might not be perfect, it's definitely much, much better than no balancing at all, or on the community servers that have strict favoritism on certain dinosaurs. So just keep that in mind when you are checking out the different community servers. Hopefully they have a balancing and a stats page that will tell you what the values are of the dinosaurs, so at least you know going in. And if they don't, then you're going to have to experience it and kind of test it and see what it's like. But it does vary from server to server. So just because you do really well and love maybe a Giganotosaurus on a deathmatch server, doesn't mean you're going to have that same those same powers and skills and abilities on another server. The next thing that people don't usually understand is combat weight. All the dinosaurs are different sizes, and while it is intuitive that a bigger dinosaur like this Edmont Enectus that we're fighting here is going to do more damage than a smaller dinosaur. And that is true, generally true, and the bigger ones tend to have more health and more armor, and they can survive. They're tougher, right? So they can survive through more bites and hits and stuff like that. But one of the things that's not really intuitive is the combat weight and how that actually affects each dinosaur. The combat weight not only affects how much damage you output, but it also affects how much damage you receive. So the higher the combat weight, the more output of damage you have, and also the less damage you're going to receive. And then the inverse is true as well. The smaller the combat weight, or the lower the combat weight, the more damage you're going to receive and the less damage you're going to deal. So remember at the beginning when I was talking about the value bars in the character selection screen, a little Deinonychus or something like that might have the damage value totally maxed out. But then when you go and bite stuff with the Deinonychus, it's not really doing much damage to it. Like if you were to bite this Edmont, it does barely any damage to it. And the reason why is because of the combat weight difference. And the way that works is that if you take the damage value, like let's say the dinosaur has 100 damage, that's going to scale based upon the defender's combat weight. So the way to figure out what a true attack damage is on your dinosaur, and your attack damage that you're applying to another dinosaur, is all dependent upon the ratio of the combat weight ratio between the two dinosaurs. So a little simple math calculation you can do is you can take the attacker's combat weight and divide that by the defender's combat weight, and then you take that value and multiply it by the attack damage. And you can get these values in the Discord or the websites of the different developers, whether it's Alderon. There's a link in the Apex Killers Discord, which will take you to the in-game stats of all these dinosaurs. And it'll tell you what the developer set these values at, and then if there's any updates or adjustments that George or the server administrators have done to them, those will be listed there as well. And you can go in there and see what those values are. So if you're on a smaller creature like a Deinonychus, and it has, let's just say it has 500 combat weight, and you're fighting something that has 1,000 combat weight, if the Deinonychus does 100 damage, then you're only going to be doing 50 damage to that larger creature. And conversely, if you're fighting something that has half your combat weight, then you'll be doing double damage. And there's a scale that varies depending on combat weight. And so you'll be able to figure out what that damage value is, and then you can apply that to the health of the dinosaur, because that's another value. It'll have health, and you can see if it's got 1,000 health and you're doing 50 damage per bite, then you do the math and it's going to take you 20 bites to kill that thing. So that covers some of the stats issues that are not really apparent. So now let's go over what is a good starter type dinosaur for beginners. When you're first starting out, I do recommend a smaller, faster creature. I think the Meg, the one that you see here on the screen, is a great choice for a starter dinosaur. It's fast, it's semi-aquatic, it can jump, and it actually does pretty good damage, so you can also defend yourself very well with a Meg. So if you don't want to run away and get away, you can fight on this. And once you learn its abilities and how to fight on it, it's one of the best starter creatures and one of the best actual creatures to play all the time in the game, especially if you have a group of people. 4 or 5 of these is a real scary thing to face on any dinosaur. So I do recommend the Meg. The next thing that's really important in this game is health recovery and the status effects. When people first pick up the game, it's very common to just go and you want to fight something and you just go up to it and start biting, and the thing that you're fighting is also just biting back, and you're essentially face tanking each other. You just walk up and exchange bites and see who dies. And if you do that, that's just brainless gameplay. And I know when you're new, that's the what most people do, because it's just kind of, you don't really understand the game. But all that's doing is the one that has the higher combat weight is probably going to win. That's just what that comes down to, because it's going to have more damage and more damage resistance than the thing that has lower combat weight. But once you understand how the combat weight works, what you can do is look at the health recovery, because the stuff that has lower combat weights tends to have more health recovery than the stuff with bigger combat weights. So, and they're usually faster. So if you have something that has a higher health recovery and it's faster, well, you don't want to stand there and face tank. You want to get in and get hits and get out without getting hit in return. And even if you do get hit in return, if your health recovery is quicker, you can go away, stay away from the thing you're fighting and heal faster than them. And then rinse and repeat the hit and run game style, and eventually you will deplete their health bar before they can deplete your health bar. So just because you're on a big, huge, deadly T-Rex doesn't mean you're just going to go run out and kill everything in your path. Most people that are playing, a lot of people understand this system, the combat weight system and the health recovery system, and what they're going to do is tail ride you and hit and run you, and they'll just deplete your health bar, and they'll run off and heal while you're bleeding or, depleting your health. And eventually they'll get the win. And that's, right now, is the meta. The meta right now is a bleed heal meta. That's what the Alderaan has changed things around, where you used to be able to only be able to heal when there was no combat timer. So the little eye on my screen there with the timer is a combat timer, and it used to be that had to be off in order for you to heal, to recover health. But they've since changed that, and now you trickle heal even when that combat timer is on. So the animal with the higher health recovery rate is usually going to win a fight if they know how to fight, if they know how to hit and run and not take enough damage to kill them in every attack. Then eventually they will win, and it's just a mathematical equation that the people that are healing constantly have a health bar, and the thing that's getting their health bar depleted is going to eventually die. And then to make that even worse, they've got a thing called bleed in the game. So you see that red scratch on my screen right there with the timer? That's bleed. Now you'll notice the combat timer is not counting down if I have that bleed timer on. The bleed timer has to run out first. Then once the bleed timer runs out, then the combat timer will start running out. And if you have bleed on you, you are not even passive healing or trickle healing with the combat timer on, or with a combat timer on. So you have to deplete the bleed, then you'll start to heal with the combat timer. Then once the combat timer's out, you'll heal even faster when there's no combat timer. So that's why right now the bleed heal meta is the meta. You get a small, fast creature that might not have a whole lot of health, but it can do bleed and it can do damage, and you just chip away at your enemy. You find something that's bigger and slower, you find something that has a slower health recovery rate, and you go and you pick at it and you run off and heal while they bleed, and slowly but surely you'll deplete their health bar and they'll win. And that's the meta right now. I'm not a huge fan of it, but that's the way that it is. Now, Bone Break used to be a great counter to the bleed heal playstyle, but they've taken away Bone Break and they've changed it into Fracture now. Fracture is useless on most things. Most things that you hit with Fracture can just run away, and then they let the Fracture timer run out, and then they heal up, and they come back and just continue to fight you. And you have no way as a big T-Rex, for example, that's big and slow, to stop anybody from getting away and healing up. So it's just inevitable usually, and it's really annoying, and it causes you to have to use the environment a lot more. You have to try to use water, you have to try to use cliffs and corners, which you could use anyway, which I would use anyway, but now you're like forced to do it immediately, because otherwise, if you're playing somebody that understands this bleed heal meta, they're just going to chip away at your health, and you can damage them to nearly death where they're like 1 HP and they just run off and they heal up and they stay away from you because there's no way for you to catch them, and they heal their whole health bar back up and they come back and continue to fight you. And your health recovery is much slower than theirs, and so you're never going to out heal them, and eventually you're just going to die. And I just don't like it because I think it's somewhat skillless meta, because anybody can go in and bite someone and then run off and heal. And all you're really doing is just using this rapid heal mechanic to eventually get the win. And the Rex has no way to stop this thing from running away. So there's really there's no risk anymore for a bleed healer to go and take on a Rex. If they understand health bars and they understand how many bites from a Rex they can take without dying, then they can go in and even exchange hits and then run away and heal. So that's the meta right now, and that's kind of how bleed and the combat timer and the bleed heal thing works. So keep that in mind when you're picking your dinosaur. Another thing, big tip is using your environment. Using your environment is a huge part of this game. You're often going to be confronted with overwhelming odds. In this fight right here, you can see I was fighting a few allos, 2 adults and like an adolescent. So 2 adult allos are very dangerous to a Kark, especially if you don't have your bleed resistance hide on, which I did not have here, and they can do a lot of bleed. And in order for me to catch them and do damage to them, I have to run. And you can see the bleed that they're doing on my screen. That darker red portion of the health bar is bleed, and when I run or move it, you can see how large it gets. And what that means is eventually my health is going to deplete down to that lighter red section. And they're also doing pretty good damage to me too. And even though I've damaged them, they're faster than me, so they can go run off and sit down the bleed and heal up and then come back and attack me. So that's why I'm using this ledge right here to prevent them from being able to easily hit me, so that I can try to get them down here. If they come down here on this ledge with me, then I know I'm doing way more damage to them than they will to me, and I have a chance of actually killing them, and it will prevent them from being able to run off. And that's the other thing is sitting down in battle. It's another tip. A lot of people don't realize it, but when you sit down, your bleed will go away much quicker when you sit down, or when you sleep it's even quicker. But when you sit down, you're taking twice as much damage, and when you lay down, you're taking 4 times as much damage. So you never ever want to sit, and especially never sleep in battle, because your enemy can come over and hit you once and do double or quadruple damage to you. So that's the thing about the bleed, is it tricks people into sleeping sometimes or sitting in battle, and they think they're safe and they're not, and they get easily killed. So just keep that in mind. Don't ever sit or sleep in battle. And if the battle is over and there's no threat, you can sit or sleep to get the bleed off much quicker. That's something that's not readily explained right away in the game, and I see a lot of newer players not understanding that and sometimes bleeding out when they really didn't need to. Also, swimming is going to maximize your bleed, so you definitely do not want to swim when you're bleeding if you can avoid it. There's another status effect in the game, which is poison and venom, and that's not really all that effective right now in the game. The poison is supposed to keep you from recovering health, which that does work, and then the venom is supposed to keep you from recovering stamina, which that is not even noticeable anymore. By the way, right here is when this guy made a mistake and fell down, and I was able to kill him. He should have never went down there. But I killed him, and now even though I'm one hit to death here, these guys are forced to leave, and that one thinks he can jump off, but he can't, so he dies. And now this third one, realizes that he can't jump in the water, because that one just tried to jump in the water. And even though it's water, if you're not a semi-aquatic, you're going to take impact damage on the surface of the water, just like you would in real life. And your dinosaur will take damage, and if you're not full health, you'll die. Or even if you are full health, if it's a high enough drop, you're going to die. So that's what happened to that allo right there. So I am not planning on jumping off of here myself. I'm going to get a Waystone. There's Waystones in the game where your friends can go to the Waystone and teleport you. And so that's what I plan on doing as soon as I heal up and This guy here should have done that, but he also winds up trying to jump here, you'll see, and he dies. So I get a triple kill out of the out of this situation here. So a newer player might not have known how to use environment, and they would have tried to fight these guys out there on land, and eventually just died. And so that's a good example of why you really need to use the environment. And then that brings me to my next point, which is map knowledge. Map knowledge is really important because the better you know the map, the better you're going to be able to use the environment to your advantage. So I recommend when you get on a dinosaur, find a spot that you like, find a POI that you like, and stick in that POI and learn it and know it and get to know it intimately. Go around it, learn there's caves in a lot of the POIs, find out where the caves are. You can go to a website called Vulnona Maps.com, and they have all kinds of stuff, information about the map of Gondua, and you can go on there, and also on Pandora, but most maps, most servers are playing on Gondua now. So you can go on that Vulnona Map site, and you can find yourself all kinds of details where food is, where water is, where caves are, where questing resources are, nesting sites. You can filter it in a lot of different ways, and it's super helpful to figure out where to go on any area in the map. So I highly recommend that. And then find a favorite location. Like my favorite location in the game is Birchwoods. I just love the scenery and the environment. And I know all the caves, and I know all the spots to hide and to use bottlenecks where I can ambush people, places jump ledges and cliffs and areas, jumping places where I can jump off to survive, where I know maybe my opponent can't take that fall, or secret little passageways and areas that are less traveled and areas that are very frequented, and I just know the area really well where all the questing items are, and so that's why I love it. And the main reason I started there is just because I like the scenery there. I like all the greenery and the rivers that flow through there, and the sounds are really cool. And then Sharptooth Marsh is right next to it, and I love all the same in there, the sounds and the scenery and everything there is pretty cool. And there's a lot of hiding spots around in both of those areas as well. So that's kind of where I'd raise most of my dinosaurs and where I live. But there's a lot of cool places around the map, and you might find that Savannah Grasslands is your place. But once you get to know it and you really know it, you'll have a much better advantage than your opponent if you know the area better than they do. And then I recommend finding like escape routes. Like, when you get attacked, have a route that you run along that route and make sure that there's jumps in it. Like if you're in a Denali, for example, it can jump a lot further and higher than most things. So you might find a place where you can jump across a river. So if you get something chasing you, you just jump across the river and they can't follow you. There might be a bridge with a gap in the middle, and you can jump across that and the thing chasing you can't. And it's a good way to survive in this game, is understanding the map and then making sure you have like pre-planned escape routes that involve some jumps and some drops and some turns and some hiding spots and some narrow corridors and bottlenecks and all that kind of stuff, so that you can have a lot of chances to get away from the stuff that's hunting you. The next thing is the other players in the game. And this is especially true on official servers, but always assume when you encounter a random player in the game, always assume that they're hostile and that they want to do harm to you. Do not try to make friends with them, and avoid them and hide from them, because more than likely they probably will try to kill you. Now, if you're on a community server that has rules, then they may be restrained by the rules and can't kill you. So if you are a herbivore, for example, or if you're a carnivore, for example, and you come across a herbivore, you know that the herbivores don't hunt carnivores, so you're safe to approach that player, or maybe not to approach them because they might think you're attacking them, but at least you don't have to hide from them. But on officials, that's not the case. They're probably going to come up and kill you. So just assume they're enemies, and you'll be much, much better off for it. The next thing is, and that basically goes to my next thing that I have written down here, which is don't trust anyone, and that's why. But that kind of goes into don't always assume that the player that you're looking at is not alone. So if you're, you know, if you're on your aloe and you see a little styraca, little, ceratopsian running around, don't just immediately run up and start attacking it. Assume that it's probably got a herd with it, and they might be really close by, and they might even be in bushes hiding nearby, waiting to bait you because they want to fight. And they're on herbivores, and on a lot of the community servers, most of the community servers, you can't attack stuff as a herbivore, but they want to fight, so they try to bait people. And they'll come out and they'll act like it's a little, innocent little baby styraca eating and drinking, and you go as your aloe to hunt it, and the next thing you know, you've got 6 adult trikes jumping you and killing you. So so just make sure you always assume that the thing that you're looking at is not alone. And if you find something that you want to attack, observe your surroundings a little bit before. Give yourself 15 seconds. Look around, check the bushes. Don't act aggressively right away. Kind of see what it's doing, and check your surroundings and make sure there's no friends around before you hunt that thing. Or at least just know that there are other opponents so that you're ready for it when you do fight. And then I would say, pick a dinosaur and stick with it. Find something that you like. You might have to play a half a dozen dinosaurs or creatures before you find one that you really, really like. And maybe you try them all out before you dial in on one. But eventually, once you find one that you like, I would say stick with that one dinosaur and play it every day, and only play that dinosaur. Learn your counters, learn what's dangerous to you, and learn what's easy for you to hunt. Watch different YouTube videos on that character and get very, very familiar with it and practice it every day. Go to deathmatch servers and practice how to fight. Learn some of the areas in the map that might be more beneficial to your creature. Like if you're on a Deinonychus, for example, you might want to find a place that has a lot of cliffs and rivers and stuff that you can jump off and jump over to avoid getting attacked. Maybe a place that has a lot of little caves or tunnels that you can go through that bigger dinosaurs can't fit through, and things like that. And then once you have that dinosaur very, very familiarized, you can become an expert at that dinosaur. And then once you've mastered that, then you move on to another one. Because if you play a lot of different dinosaurs, it can be hard to, really, really understand a dinosaur, and you'll make a lot more mistakes when you're playing it, and you'll die a lot more frequently. Also, in terms of map knowledge and understanding the map, you got to understand that there are hot spots on the map. And in most community servers, and even on the officials, the biggest hotspot is Grand Plains. That's where I am right now in this clip, and that's where most people go. And so if you want to fight, that's where you go, because you're going to encounter other players. So don't wander around there by yourself if you're not really good at fighting, or you're not anticipating or expecting to fight something, or if you don't know how to escape or don't have a really good escape plan. I would say avoid that area. Or if you do go into that area, understand that you're going to get attacked. You will get attacked. So don't be surprised and don't be mad if you go to Grand Plains and you get attacked. And if you're by yourself, you will get overwhelmed. You're going to encounter a group of players there that will attack you and probably kill you if you're not really good at escaping and or fighting. So just understand that. I see a lot of times people go to Grand Plains and they get killed, and then they get mad because they died, and they get mad at that player. And that brings me to my next point, is that when you get killed in this game, it's not personal, guys. It is not personal. This game is all about carnivores hunting stuff. That's what it is. And herbivores surviving the hunt. So if you're on a herbivore and you get hunted and you get killed, there's no reason to get mad at that player, because they're just playing the game. And that's what you're supposed to do. And you know this when you enter into this game. If you bought this game and you enter into the game, you know that you may get hunted on no matter what you're on. This is a very, very high possibility that you're going to get hunted, because it's literally the whole point of the game, is dinosaurs hunting others. But every day I see people, they get mad. I mean, I hunted a Triceratops the other day. I was on my Rex, and I hunted a Triceratops. and they started, telling me off in global that I was a jerk and I was rude and how could I do that? And they'd just grown that trike. They just spent all this time growing that to adult, and how dare I come kill them? Well, I mean, they were a trike and I'm a T-Rex. That's what T-Rexes do. They hunt especially trikes, and furthermore, I mean, why would you go to Grand Plains? And this is a player that's played the game for a long time and even knows Grand Plains is a hot spot. So they grew their trike. They came to Grand Plains. They got killed by my Rex, and somehow they're making me out to be some kind of a bad person. And it was a surprise to them, and it was shocking to them that a T-Rex, that me on my T-Rex came and killed them as they're triking. That I don't understand that. If it's a new player that doesn't know the map, doesn't understand Grand Plains is a hot spot, I get it, and that's one reason I'm making this video, is to give you the tip. Grand Plains is a hot spot. Don't go there if you're by yourself or if you're not comfortable fighting. But the experienced players that complain about it, I don't understand that. It's not personal. The players are just playing the game. You're going to get killed. You just need to expect that that's going to happen. And when it does, yeah, it's not fun, but that's part of the game. And so when you die, you get sent somewhere else on the map, and you got to grow back up again. And just realize that and come to terms with that, and just play the game, before you go to Grand Plains especially, is one of my tips for you guys. And then lastly, a couple of things I just wanted to touch on is for beginners that are trying to grow and grow your dinosaur. If you're having a hard time, these next few tips might help. For one thing, my first tip is, if you're not an adult, don't fight. Fighting is for the adults. If you come across something that's an adult and you're not an adult, you're at a huge disadvantage. That comes back to the whole combat weight thing, and as you grow, you get heavier combat weight, so you're just not really in the best position to fight unless you're an adult. So sub-adult maybe, but definitely I just avoid it until I'm full adult. But when you're questing, you'll notice here when I was crouched, I was silent, and then when I'm walking, you can hear me stomping around, and then when I'm running, I'm very loud. So what I'll see is a lot of the times I'll see people running around from quest item to quest item trying to quest as fast as they can so they can grow as fast as they can. But what that's doing is that's just drawing attention to all the predators in the area to come kill you. And in the meantime, you're draining your stamina. You can see my stamina draining. When you run, it obviously drains your stamina faster. And then you got to sit down or sleep to get your stamina back. And then they've been watching you because they heard you running around, and then they just jump out of the bushes and kill you because you take 4 times more damage when you're sleeping, and you have to go grow all over again. So be careful when you're questing. Go slow. Take your time, be patient, try to stay quiet, try to avoid other players. If you hear other footsteps or anything, don't assume that they're friendly. Don't assume that they want to help. Assume that they want to kill you, and hide and avoid them. And then the other thing is, when you're actually questing, that is also loud. So even if you're just standing there and you're collecting stuff, it's louder than you think. People can hear that from pretty far away. And same thing with like your footsteps. Like, it may not seem like when I'm running it's much louder, but the noise travels much further. And listen here, you can hear me picking these flowers. That doesn't seem like it's that loud, but it does people can pick that up from quite far distance, and predators will be lurking around in the bushes waiting to just jump out and kill you. So be careful when you're questing, and make sure if you hear any footsteps or anything like that, I would say crouch and hide in a bush until you don't hear the footsteps anymore, and then you can at least have some kind of reassurance that there's nothing around that can hear you. If you hear footsteps, then they can hear you. So just keep that in mind. Now, there still may be something lurking around waiting and to jump me, but that's always a risk you have to take. You just want to try to minimize that risk. So don't run around from quest to quest. I would say get a partner so you can get group quests. That way you get personal quests, which are the red ones, and you get group quests, which are the green ones, and you can share them, you can split them, and then try to just split them evenly. But don't compete for questing items, and don't, if you do hear footsteps or you do see a threat especially, don't go try to get that one last pine cone or that one last flower, because it's not worth one quest to lose your life and you lose all the growth. And on a lot of these servers, you're going to get sent back to, hatchling or adolescent or wherever they do on the community server that you're on. You'll lose all that progress. So it's definitely worth just giving up one quest instead of losing all of your growth and, we're 10 quests worth of growth. So just keep that in mind. That's the famous last words. Oh, I just wanted to get that one last flower. No, don't do it. Just if you hear footsteps or you see a predator, don't even risk it. Just leave and go quest somewhere else in a different POI, and you'll be much better off for it. Now, another thing is fight or flight. You got to know when to fight and when to flee. And if you're facing overwhelming odds, you definitely don't want to fight. You want to try to run. And if you're on a dinosaur you're not really comfortable with and something ambushed you or attacked you and you weren't ready for the fight, it's best to run and not try to fight. So like in this case here, I get ambushed by this Dino. Now I'm a pretty good match for a Dino as a duck, but since I was ambushed and I'm bone broken, he's already got me to less than half health. So I'm going to defend myself a little bit here, but really I'm just trying to wait for this bone break to get off so I can do that and dodge away and then run out of here and get away. I am not in any condition to fight. I want to survive, so I'm running. And I know I'm faster than him on land, and I've got plenty of stamina. Again, I was conserving my stamina for a fight. I wasn't wasting my stamina. You see a lot of times you see people running around and they waste their stamina. Don't do that. That was the character screen, by the way, what I just did, and that's where you can see all these status effects when they pop up on your screen. You can open up that character screen and it'll actually give you a detail of what those icons mean. So that's something that a lot of people don't know about, but that's something you can do to figure out what these status effects are that are on you. And yeah, so I was running from that situation. I'm going to get my stamina back and I'm going to continue to run very far away from the water. I'm definitely not going to sit here because I assume he's probably swimming back around to try to come ambush me again. So I'm just getting some stam back so I can get out. And then of course sitting and sleeping makes your stamina come back quicker. So that's why I was doing that right there. Now I'm going to get up here into a really safe spot. I'm going to make sure I'm very, very safe. Like I want to get very far away. One mistake I see people do is they don't get far enough away. They just kind of get a little bit away and they think, oh, I should be safe here. And then they get killed or they get bit when they're sleeping. And so I say go very, very far away. Like I'm up on this cliff away. I'll hear if that Dino tries to come after me, I'll hear him stomping around. And just make sure you're much further away than you initially think. I would say if you think you're safe, go another 100 meters out because so many times I see people die when they thought they were safe. Now another tip here is you can hit the character screen or bring up the menu and you can zoom the camera in or out. So right there my camera was being blocked by the trees. So I pull that menu up and you can see I can zoom in or out, and then when I spin my camera around it's no longer getting blocked by those leaves anymore, and I have a 360 degree view around me. So play around with that camera zoom. That'll help you, especially if you're in a forest or in the bushes. You can use that to your advantage so you're not getting blocked, your camera's not getting blocked, especially in battle. So that's another hot tip for some people that might not know about that. I think I've won a lot of fights because I get into the bushes and people's camera, my opponent's cameras are getting blocked by the leaves and the trees and stuff, and mine's not. So generally speaking, zoomed out all the way is the best, so you can have the best field of view. But sometimes when you've got stuff blocking your camera in between the camera and your character, you need to zoom in a little bit. And some people even play zoomed in all the way. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and just sleep the rest of the way. And safe log, that's another thing is this timer right here, when you come into log out, if you just log straight out, it's called hard logging, and your character will remain there for like 5 minutes, and it can be attacked and killed. But if you let this timer run out, then you log off safely, and when you actually log, your character will disappear, and I'm safe now. So I just safe logged. I know my character's not going to get attacked. That's something that a lot of people don't know about, and they come back and log in and they wonder why their character is gone and dead, and that's why. So that was the video, guys. I hope that helped. Those are a lot of the things I wish I knew when I first started playing this game. So I hope that that helps you. Let me know in the comments below if it does, or if you have any other questions, other tips you think that could be helpful for the community. Leave them in the comments below. Give me a like if you liked the video. And as always, guys, I hope to see you out there in Gondua. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.